Welcome to another episode of the S.E.M podcast. Jack and Zach are back with Tom Carlton today. Tom, how are you doing?
Pretty good, thanks. Just nervous, but I'm good. Yeah.
Good. Where are you calling from?
Calling from Chilliwack, British Columbia. It's about an hour or so outside Vancouver.
Very good. Nice. All right. Well, I think you're familiar with our format. We talk about how you ended up in Scotland, got the call, if there's any story behind that. And then we skip over the mission because we want to know what you've been up to since you got back. And then we'll go back and reminisce. So if you want to start us out with how you got the call.
Yeah, sure. Well, I was brought up in the church. My parents and grandparents were members of the church, but my dad was a non-member. Well, I was 2 years old. He kind of left my mum and then he got excommunicated. So I got brought up with my stepdad, but he was also a good example of a church member. Both my parents went on missions. My mum served in Little Rock, Arkansas. She said that was pretty interesting. And she didn't have the most positive stories all the time about it, but it was good. And then my dad went to London South. And when I got my call initially, I didn't make a big deal out of it. My mum got the letter one morning and just brought it up. I was still in bed. I just opened the letter there and then. And when I saw Scotland, I was like, ooh. And I kind of went back to sleep thinking, I was hoping for something a bit more exotic than Scotland, maybe, My best friend was in the south of France. And my other friend went to Canada and all that stuff. But I guess Scotland it was. But I learned to kind of eventually learn to love it. But that was my initial reaction.
What was the timing?
I think I got my call probably April, I think, maybe. And then had a few months and then I left in August. So I can't remember exactly, but yeah.
Okay.
At that time I was working. I'd just already finished like high school and everything. So I was working for a year for Leeds City Council before I started my mission to save up for it. I was doing admin and things like that. So that was also interesting. Working in an office full of ladies. That was a good preparation.
Yeah. All right. So let's get back now. Since you've been home, what have you been up to?
Well, briefly before my mission, like a few months before, I visited Canada. Me and my best friend came to visit my now wife's family. I wasn't dating her or anything at the time, but we visited them just because we thought Canada would be a cool place. We wanted to go to Whistler skiing and stuff like that. And so we visited them. And, I thought she was pretty cute and stuff. But nothing ever happened. We never dated. And then that's like a year after my mission finished, I moved to Canada to get married to Melissa, the same lady I went to visit at that time. So that's what happened. I wanted to be a dentist. So I was studying at Leeds University straight after my mission. I kind of got home in August, went straight to university in September. But then we got in touch with Melissa. She started messaging me. Things got serious pretty quick. And then I got a visa, like a working holiday visa to move to Canada. I got that. And then we got married a few months after I moved out. She sponsored me on the spouse visa. And so now I'm a Canadian citizen after a few years. I've been here since 2011. So been here quite a while. We've got 4 kids now. We've got Lily, Abby, Harry, and Molly, ranging from 10 to 2 years old, the youngest. And what else? Yeah, I love it. You're
not a dentist, though.
No, I'm not a dentist. That's right. I did want to be a dentist because of all the money, but then I found something else that was pretty lucrative. So I was pretty lucky about that. I got into the world of online ads. Have you heard of what arbitrage is? Where I buy traffic and then I kind of forward it on and get paid for the clicks on the other side. And I've been doing that for over 10 years now.
Okay, nice, great.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back then to August when you entered the MTC and just roll forward. You can go through areas, companions, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So I got called, and obviously the MTC is pretty close to my house. It was like 45 minutes from my house, so it wasn't very far. One of the reasons why I was like, a bit disappointed. So I thought the MTC was good experience. I took it pretty seriously. One main memory I have of the MTC was when we were practicing, teaching each other and stuff. They gave us a challenge to go out with our companions and try and find somebody to speak to on the temple grounds. And I remember being really nervous again to do that. And we found it was a member of the church. Obviously, they'd walking around the temple, and I tried speaking to them, and I was just made a real mess of it. And I felt pretty embarrassed, and I was started to doubt myself. I was thinking, if I can't even speak to a member of the church who's receptive, how am I going to do it to these people in Scotland that are obviously probably not going to be as welcoming and things? So that got me a little bit worried. And so when we went into the temple to do a session, I remember praying pretty hard in the celestial room at the end, I need a lot of help here, Heavenly Father, to do this missionary work. I'm not very good at speaking. I don't feel like I'm, I need some help. And I committed to just work really hard and try and be as obedient as I could, and hoping that Heavenly Father would help me and bless me. And I felt like I got the chance to kind of do that pretty quickly when you first arrive in Scotland. So that was the main memory I had from the MTC.
Who was in the MTC with you?
It was a pretty big group, actually. There's no sisters in our group, so there's too many. There's too many elders to fit in the elder side of the dormitories or whatever. So I was actually in the sisters' dormitories because to fit us all in. So there was Elder Salitos. I served with him. He's one of my favorites. Elder Brophy from Ireland. There was Elder Fox, Elder Warby. There's a bunch of them. So yeah, Elder Hawkins from England. Elder Shenton. I think he's younger brother. You already spoke to Elder Shenton, right? But his younger brother was in my group with me as well.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Actually, that was a funny memory. When we first arrived, me and him arrived at a similar time, and as our families were saying goodbye, it was pretty funny. We were all he's a really really friendly guy, and we just got chatting. It kind of helped break the ice and make everybody less nervous. That was a nice memory. But,
all right. So take us to Scotland now.
So get to Scotland, and when you arrived, there was kind of like a few of the other guys, like Craig and people have mentioned. It was a little bit of a culture shock. I was like, oh, I didn't realize it was going to be so serious and intense. Initially, when the APs pick you up. But I guess I kind of accepted it, but it felt a little bit just different to what I was expecting. And they were pretty challenging us and checking that we were all our dress was perfect, that our ties were the right length and everything, and that our hair was all smart. I usually got in trouble. It looked like I hadn't shaved because I've got pretty dark hair, and even when I shave, you can always see my I shaved my neck this morning. You can still see it, but so stuff like that. And I just remember laying on the floor of that room upstairs in the mission home on the evening, and I was just like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? So but apart from that, was I think it was who was the I can't remember, but I just remember that I got assigned to serve in Dumbarton in the Glasgow zone, and my trainer was Ed Levitt from Gunlock, Utah. I don't know if you've had him on yet or anything, but he was a great trainer. He was very very dedicated and great example. So I had a great start in that regard. And the start of the first day, the zone leaders drove us out to Glasgow, and we whitewashed a new area. The elders were at the time in Dumbarton, so the zone leaders had been the ones covering it beforehand, and they took us straight to a member's house. Sister Yvonne Towie, I don't know if you've heard of her before, but she kind of ran a certain part of Dumbarton. She was a fairly recent convert, and she was excellent. So that was Tyson Bear and Ryan Blake. I think they were my zone leaders. I kind of really looked up to those guys. I thought they were awesome. Pretty intense still, but I kind of just got used to it, and I kind of thought that was the way it was at the time. So I do remember getting a bit in trouble with them once near the beginning. Yvonne liked us to come over quite often, and if we didn't go every day to see her, she kind of got a bit upset. And the zone leaders, I think I mentioned something to her saying, "Oh, we can't come over all the time." The zone leaders said we need to be doing other stuff. We can't see you every day or whatever. And I guess it upset her. And then she called them, and then they had to come over and, "Oh, you need to be more tactful in how you speak to members." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Oh, sorry," but and they got like the read James. They opened up the New Testament and were reading for like explaining to me how I had to bridle my tongue and things. I was like, "Oh, okay, sorry." But that was one memory I've got right at the beginning, right in the first week. But similarly, I thought I had an excellent start because President Frederick always kind of his main message I remember was member work, member work, member work. We like the last resort was to knock on doors and go find it yourself. He said always to go visit members. So we always went around visiting the less active and stuff. But we went to Sister Towie's because she always had like friends, and she was incredible. She invited friends over when we'd teach them, and I think I taught probably 5 lessons to different people within my first few weeks, just in her home with different people, and we ended up baptizing one of her friends pretty soon as we got there. A really powerful memory I have in her home was when we were showing her the DVD for the first vision, and then also the Finding Faith in Christ. And I just remember we were all just in tears, and it was just an incredible moment of just feeling the spirit and how everybody, the members were helping the friends, and the friends were obviously feeling the spirit. And I just thought that was the normal way missionary work was done. Obviously, that was probably the last time I had a member that helpful, but it was a good start to try and look after. But yeah,
that's great.
But yeah, that was Dumbarton. One last memory I have of Dumbarton was, most of the areas in Scotland I served in were pretty rough. Most of them were kind of large portions of it were council estates. I'm sure you can, if you served in Glasgow, you probably experienced the same thing. And so oftentimes we had questionable characters we were teaching, and one guy, he must have been a drug dealer or something. We'd been teaching him, but then he kind of kept on avoiding us, and we bumped into him one evening, and he was like all embarrassed or whatever. Oh yeah, trying to explain why he didn't see us, and then he dropped something on the floor. He was hiding in his jacket, and we looked down, and he dropped a gun on the floor, and we were like, "Oh boy!"
Oh my goodness!
So I was like, "Oh boy." We didn't teach him anymore after that, but I just remember that. I didn't think guns were a big thing in Scotland, but it was probably knives and stuff. But I do remember that.
Man.
After being with, I think I was with my trainer 2 or 3 transfers. After that, I got called to be a district leader in Paisley, but it wasn't like a simple call. I was put with a guy that was the district leader in that area beforehand. So I was serving with the district leader. I was like, "Oh, this is awkward." I was like, he's not going to be my biggest fan, but I got along well with him. I thought he's called Waylon Grantham. I think he's from Washington. Mm-hmm. He was definitely not the typical Utah missionary I was used to. He was a bit more streetwise. I don't know, less, not as polished. And I kind of liked that about him. He was pretty genuine, and he related to people real well. He related to people so well, though, that one of the people we were teaching, apparently, he felt, I didn't feel this way, but he felt that she was attracted to women. So he called the mission president and asked to be moved. I don't know if he just wanted to get out of the area or not, but she was actually a drug addict, and she was always doing these twitches. Maybe he thought she was winking at him or something, but I don't know.
If you're listening, Grantham, come on.
At that time, my zone leaders were pretty crazy as well. Sean Wake, he told me you've meant to have had a few appointments with him, and he keeps probably not showing up. Is that right?
Yes, we can confirm that is the truth. We're still working on it.
Yeah, well, I hope you eventually get on him. It'll be very interesting to speak to. But me and Sean, we're actually related through marriage. He's my wife's cousin through marriage. So that's kind of funny now.
Oh,
but
nice.
it's a small world. He was a pretty extreme zone leader. He's got a big reputation throughout the mission. And I think I heard in a few podcasts previous where you got to report numbers like 5 times a day almost. I was thrown into that right at the beginning, and I was just like, what is going on here? This is the dumbest thing I've ever done. Like, we're waiting at a bus stop, and I'm just like trying to phone all the missionaries in the district, so then I can report how many new investigators you got, how many people have you stopped, blah 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 blah. I'm like, it's only been an hour since the last call, nothing. But it's like,
Gosh.
so that was it didn't last forever, but when it was happening, I just remember thinking, this is over the top. It's a bit of a waste of time. But I do remember just feeling a little bit stressed of initially being a district leader. It wasn't, although it was a bit easier because Wayland was the previous district leader, so it's not like I had like a greenie or anything I was serving with. So, but that's one memory. The lady we were baptized though, she was on methadone. I don't know if we would probably baptize them this day and age, but I remember we took her to a member's house for a lesson once, and she just got a prescription, and we showed up, and then at the dinner table, she was like falling asleep, or well, it looked like it, but she was tripping out, and that was embarrassing. And then the day before baptism, we were checking in. I forgot about this. Did you do daily contact with your investigators back when you were on your mission?
I did.
Okay, well, if you don't contact them every day, you know the devil will. So, we were doing our daily contact the day before. This lady was about to be baptized, and we knock on her door, and she opens it, and she's just like in tears, and she's having a panic attack, and there's just blood everywhere around her house, and apparently there'd been a knife fight. Some people had been stabbed in her house, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So she was a bit freaked out. So I was like, okay, maybe she won't get baptized tomorrow. There's a lot going on here, right? And I reported it to Sean, my zone leader, and he's like, what do you mean she's not getting baptized tomorrow? I was like, hello, did you not just hear what I've just told you? But she got baptized the week after, but I wasn't in the good books with the zone leader because of that. But yeah, that wasn't. I felt like I was kind of the people we were teaching off times were just kind of people that were struggling and had a lot of challenges, and it felt like, I don't know, long term they didn't have a big chance of staying active, if you know what I mean, right? And so that's probably 80% of the people that I baptized with my companions were probably in that category. There's a few awesome ones that I remember, but yeah. So that was my memory of Paisley. And when I got called to leave, I went to I had 2 other companions there, I think. Well, I had Elder Hensley after that. He's also from Washington, I think. So, and then then I got called to Perth, and that was after serving in Dumbarton and then Paisley. Going to Perth was just like, it was like the celestial kingdom. It was so beautiful. It was the countryside. Those beautiful mountains. I wasn't in the inner city. It was the best place I've ever been. I wasn't a district leader anymore, I don't think, for a little while. And it was just, it was beautiful. And I was serving with who was probably one of my favorite companions as well, Elder Troy Salitos. I would recommend getting him on. He's awesome. He's from California, and I think he currently works as a contractor for the NSA or something crazy like that. He's a smart guy. But yeah, I really had. I loved Perth. That was easily my favorite area. One of the cool things about Perth is there was a member called Cliff. He was from England, but he lived up in Scotland, and he used to actually go out knocking doors himself on his own, and then he'd give us referrals of people that would be interested.
Oh, wow.
He was like a Mormon Jehovah's Witness or something. And
wow,
it was incredible, yeah, because we went visiting the members, and then we just got sweet, nice referrals from Cliff, and we baptized 2 of the people that he found at door knocking. So that was awesome. And one of the guys that we were teaching from him was like an 80-year-old guy called Tom Rutter. He was a fisherman. It was pretty hard to teach him because every chance you let him, he'd tell you the 5-minute story about fishing and being in the ocean where there's a huge storm. And when he was like, he was on the ship, his favorite line, he used to repeat this over and over, but he was like, I was off the coast of Kinloch Bervie, 2 miles offshore, and I had, these big waves, and I had atheists kneeling at my feet. He's like, there's no such thing as an atheist out at sea. Yeah, and he used to have this. He used to have this super old Bible that his dad or whatever gave him, over 100-year-old Bible, and he used to love showing us that. But when we gave him the Book of Mormon, he kind of kept joking that he didn't need the Bible anymore. That's the Book of Mormon's all he needed. But we tried to remind him, no, we still use the Bible, but he just loved the Book of Mormon. So he's I think the only person I baptized that ended up staying active, and then he actually got endowed in the temple, and that was incredible to hear. That I loved hearing that.
That's
I think
awesome.
it was quite a while ago now, so I found out that he's passed away. But that's and he got sealed to his wife. She'd already passed away as well when we were teaching him. So that's one of the good success stories I like to think. I didn't just waste my time. By the way, I know it's like one of those paradoxes, isn't it? Going on a mission is it's not just the people that you help. It's more about what you learn as yourself. It's not what you gain the most as you focus on everybody else, right? It's one of those. But yeah, kind of like I forgot to mention, but I've just been called fairly recently as an early morning seminary teacher, and I was really reluctant to take that call in. I was like, my wife was next to me, and I probably wouldn't have said yes if she wasn't there. And but yeah, that's similar to that. Waking up early was never my strong suit, but I always woke up. I was always trying to be obedient, so I never slept in or anything. But that was my least favorite thing about being a missionary: waking up early every day. It was tough.
You're not the only one at all, Tom. I can assure you that.
I know. I wish I was a morning person, but it's just I don't know. It's just not my biology or whatever. Another cool story from Perth is, again, it was kind of I kind of this whole culture thing of the Zonalians seem to have a lot of power. That's what I noticed. They seem to like be the gods of whatever it was, and you had to listen to everything they said. And I remember they gave us like a challenge one day to invite somebody to be baptized on the street. I was like, oh, not this one again. I don't think this is really appropriate or whatever. But I remember that day we had a phone call. I said, okay, we'll do it. And by some crazy miracle, we stopped this young lady called Sarah Clark on the street. We had a nice little chat with her, and then we kind of phrased it in a soft way. It wasn't like a hard, but we're like, hey, if you come to know these things are true that we're teaching you, will you get baptized or whatever, something like that. And she ended up saying, oh yeah, okay, yeah, I think I would. And so we were like, whoa, look, we actually did what that was lead us to ask us, and it happened. And then she actually got baptized a month or so later. So that was a pretty cool example of following your leaders. Even though I kind of questioned it at first, if you do it, I guess, in the right way, not in a crazy, hey, will you be baptized straight away off the bat? It could work, I guess. When I got asked to leave Perth, I was kind of pretty sad. It was right before Christmas, and I got called. I'd been there quite a while. Let's have a look quickly. In Perth, I served with Elder Solitos, Elder Todd Yates, who sadly is not with us anymore. He passed away a few years back. Then I had Elder Matthew Franklin, who was an English missionary. Elder Jensen. So I had 4 companions. So it was one of my longest areas.
Wow.
But I got asked to leave there, and I went to Kilmarnock. You ever been there, guys?
No.
I've been in the zone.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. But it's like Kilmarnock. I went from the longest area to my shortest area. I was thankfully only in Kilmarnock for 6 weeks, one transfer. I was with Elder Dale Brimhall. He was an interesting guy. He used to have Campbell's soup for breakfast, a tin of Campbell's soup, and he used to eat it with like a big bread knife, like he was doing karate or whatever, like spinning it around in his hands. I was like, careful, Elder, I don't want to get. But one silly thing that happened when we were in Kilmarnock, some members had a key to our apartment, whatever, and so when we'd been out all day, we came home, we got in, and none of the lights were turning on. And then I was looking around, and it looked like they'd been into the apartment, and then they'd put pillows underneath our bed sheets and made it look like 2 people were in our beds or whatever. And then we went into the bathroom, and there's a dead fish in the bath, like a big. And I was like, what is going on with this place? These crazy Scottish people in. But and they'd unscrewed all the light bulbs, so none of the lights would turn on.
Wow.
So
What the
that
effort.
was that was a pretty elaborate prank the members played on us there, but they were nice enough. But I just remember it being extremely cold. It was like the coldest winter, and it was just icy and snowy the whole time I was there. And I don't think I saw the roads without ice on them. And I was pretty relieved when I got asked to leave after that. But you know, it was okay still. I got along with all the people in my district. It was good. After that was when I got called to serve with Craig in Glasgow as his own leader. That was fun to go with Craig because I was a friend. We were friends before our mission. We used to go to dances and things together. He was in the adjoining stake. His uncle was my stake president that called me and set me apart. So yeah, that was quite. We had fun. Craig shared some of the fun times we had together. We were sadly it was only 6 weeks again because then he got called to be the AP after that. But he told us the crazy stories of the car getting covered in poo. That was disgusting. And that was another area that was pretty rough. We were in downtown Glasgow, all the high-rise flats. There was Drumchapel, Maryhill, all that area. So yeah, you had to be a little bit careful. We taught a few very questionable characters. I remember in those flats. We were on the top floor almost of one of those buildings, and I don't know how we were sat down with this guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've just got out of prison." And I was like, "Oh okay, why? What happened?" And he was like, "Yeah, I raped somebody." I was like, "Okay, we're leaving. See ya." But lots of characters in Glasgow, that's for sure. And Craig did mention that the members in Glasgow, understandably, I think a little bit, I can relate to them now for sure, but they weren't the biggest fans of the missionaries at that time, and I think it was because they were always bringing people from these kind of areas that were, you know, not necessarily, I don't know, just didn't seem either. I don't know how to word it, but you know what I mean, right?
Yep.
And I just remember meeting with the ward mission leader, and he always used to tell us, like, "Elders, you've got to stop doing this." And at the time, you know, it felt the culture of the mission was like, you need to give everybody a chance, you know, blah blah blah. God loves everyone. And then you've got the members saying, "Look, Elders, can you give us a break a little bit here?" But I think, and you know, I think the culture of the mission was a little bit. It's kind of ironic that the missionaries were kind of prideful. They think they knew best, and I kind of see that. I think we should have the line was, "Oh, we've got the keys for, you know, baptism and stuff," and really it should be more of a joint effort with the members. And I felt like it was a bit too one-sided, perhaps. And so that was I think we had a good. I kind of took that opportunity to kind of work with some of the members, and Craig mentioned John Gallagher. He was a father of the Bishop of Dumbarton, but he'd been less active for a long time, and we got in touch with him, and he was such a funny guy. We got along very well with him. He started coming back to church, and he used to always come up teaching with us and stuff, and so that was really nice. He used to make us some really nice food. Did you ever have like those Scottish bread buns where they're almost black burned on the top? Don't know if I
don't know.
I think that was more of a Glasgow specialty, but he always used to get those, and he used to put like a nice bacon or a square sausage in. That was also a new thing. I was like, "What's this square sausage?" I'm used to it and all that stuff. But he was beautiful. I loved him, and he used to always make fun of me. Like, obviously, I've got a bit of a tan complexion. I'm quarter Pakistani by genetics, and he used to kind of make these funny jokes, you know. And I found it funny. A few members actually were like that. I kind of in the paper, but I went along with it. It was funny, but
you mean racist?
Yeah, I'm on the side of I think racism's funny, you know, and if you're being nice about it, you know what I mean. But
right,
I'm not one of these super woke guys, but I thought it was funny. But racist, perhaps, yeah. Oh, and go on about DNA. When I was in Scotland, I had no idea that I had all this Scottish ancestry. I only found it afterwards. My mum did a bunch of genealogy. I had loads of Scottish ancestors, and I did that DNA swab testing, and I'm actually 33% Scottish, and I'm only 20-something% English. So I'm more Scottish than I'm English.
Oh wow!
Wow.
So
There you
I
go.
could have. I wish I knew that when I was in Scotland. So then I could have actually maybe had a bit of a better chance to relate to them, because they don't really like English people, right? So because I was from, I can't remember if I mentioned earlier, but yeah, I'm from England, but I live in Canada now. But yeah. So I did miss one story earlier. Sorry, I've got to mention this now. I'm jumping around a little bit, but in Perth, there was this guy called Stephen. We got into church, and he was definitely drunk at the time. And the hymn was "Onward, Christian Soldiers." And Perth is only a small branch. There was probably 10 members there. And so when you're singing the song, he started singing it like it was at a football game, like, "Oh, we're Christians." And I was just like, "Oh no!" I was like,
That'd be a good football anthem right there.
yeah, it would be a great anthem. Yeah. I used to love talking to. I just loved how passionate everybody was, whether it was Rangers or Celtic. And one of the members gave me like a Rangers scarf once, and I was wearing it on a P day once. And this guy came up to me and he was like, he got really serious, like, you better not get this dirty. I was like, keep it clean. I was like, okay, yeah, sorry. It's just, it's like a religion in it there.
Yeah.
But sadly, the guy that we took to church that was singing "Onward, Christian Soldiers," he got murdered like the week after that by some drunk dude, baseball bat to the face. So it was, even though Perth was my favorite area, there's still some rough areas,
Oh my goodness!
Dang.
You said that so casually, Tom.
Well, it was 10 years ago now. It's sunk in, but probably there's more than that.
Goodness.
But yeah, we found out by this less active lady we used to go see. She was like, also, she knew everybody in town, and she's like, "Oh yeah, Stephen's just." I was like, "Oh wow, really sorry, I'm last week."
Wow.
Glasgow. Oh, let me tell you a few. When I was in Glasgow, after Craig, I served with Elder Kevin Anthony, and Kevin Anthony, I haven't really been able to get in touch with him since my mission. I've spoken to a few of my old companions. Mainly Troy Salios. He came up to my wedding with another guy. What was he called? Oh man, I can't remember. But Kevin Anthony was an excellent musician, really good at singing, and so he was the only missionary that when we went to do like a spiritual thought in a member's house, we'd sing a song. I'd never usually do this. I'm okay at singing. Like I can maybe hold a tune, but I wouldn't be confident enough to do that. But I remember going to this part member family. She was, I think, the really excited present, but her husband was a non-member, and we were in the kitchen, and we were singing this song. And I looked over, and I could see that this guy was feeling the spirit. I was like, it was echoing in the kitchen or whatever. And this Kevin was doing really good harmony and stuff. So that was the memory I've got of Kevin. He was a nice guy. After Kevin, I served with Elder Chung. He was a pretty old guy, Chinese. I think he's Taiwanese, sorry, and his dad was an Area 70, I think, and he was really, really smart guy. It'd be really interesting to get on him. When I came out to my group, him and Elder Ho, another guy from Hong Kong. They came out, and I think one served in Edinburgh most of the mission, and one served in Glasgow. And the 2 years I was there, they pretty much created 2 new branches. They baptized that many Chinese people when they were there. They were just baptizing so many people. But he'd been teaching Mandarin most of his mission, but then near the end he was called to serve as a zone leader with me, and we were teaching in English, but obviously we would still speak to lots of Chinese people at the same time. That was really cool to kind of, I learned a bit of Chinese, and I'd used to stop people on the street, and then I'd say hello to them, and then that would be about it, and then he'd take over. But I enjoyed serving with him. That was definitely quite unique compared to most of the other guys I served with. And I'd never retrained anybody my whole mission. And so I kind of requested to the assistants and the president at the end, like, come on, I need to have at least one chance to train before I finish my mission. Because I'd been in Glasgow quite a while at that time. And so I think they felt sorry for me. And so my last 6 weeks, they sent me up to Elgin, and we whitewashed there. And I trained Elder Stewart. And he didn't really need training, to be honest. He was incredible. When I first arrived, he wanted to wake up early and go on a run, because I think he just had like an injury. He'd broke his his leg, and so he needed to strengthen it up a bit. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a good excuse. I guess I've got to actually go and do some real exercise. And then he was just extremely sincere and really committed. And I just remember every time we stopped somebody on the street, he'd almost, when he bore his testimony, even on the street and things, he'd almost tear up and he was that sincere. And it was pretty impressive to see how powerful his testimony was. And the best lady we were teaching in that last transfer was, it was somebody that wasn't actually in a council estate on drugs. It was amazing. She was a lady with a nice house. She, she was pretty wealthy, whatever. And I just remember taking some of the members with us to teach her. And when we taught her about baptism and how children are innocent, she really found that to be powerful because she'd lost some children and she'd kind of been under the impression that, if they hadn't been baptized when they died, they'd be damned or whatever. And so when we taught her that and read it from Moroni, I just remember everybody was also, the member we were bringing was crying, she was testifying, and that was a really awesome lady we were teaching. That was beautiful. But yeah, that's about it, guys. I think from my memories, let me have a double check.
Or the Fredericks, they were your president the whole time?
So I can explain a little bit of the difference of culture and things, because I had President Frederick for the first pretty much half of my mission, first 12 months. And he was, I really liked his approach, to be honest. I know he was a little bit, I wish when you had him on, you'd have asked him a little bit more about this, if he knew about the stuff the zone leaders were doing. Because I'm pretty sure they were taking it, a bit too far.
I can assure you he didn't.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I loved President Frederick. I loved how he was always kind of focusing on member work. And one of the key things of advice I remember him saying was, you just need to, if you want to be successful in life and in business, and I was like, this guy's pretty successful, I should listen to this guy. And he's like, you just need to learn how to get along with everybody. It's a good skill to have. So I was like, okay, that's a good idea. And I put that on my resume or something. I was like, I can get along with everybody. I was like, so I thought that was so President Frederick, I loved him. I loved that guy. Then Elder Griffiths, President Griffiths, I won't lie, I did think he was a little bit softer at the beginning, but that was just, I was just used to the old way, I guess, right? But I came to probably prefer that a little bit more, the new culture, or that culture, a lot more than the old one, for sure. I think some people like Dave Kane, I served around Dave Kane. You've had him on a while back. He was one of the podcasts I love listening to. I didn't realize how hard of a time he kind of had with some of the things going on. I didn't really have that as challenging an experience as he is, but I can definitely see how some personalities would struggle more than others, for sure. I kind of just get along with it, and even though I thought some of the things were dumb, I was like, oh, whatever. I'll just ignore that. Like, have you heard of this phrase? I thought this was really stupid, to be honest. But the zone leaders at the beginning were like, if you don't have hair product in, you don't understand the atonement of Jesus Christ. I was like, that's stretching it a little bit, guys. Okay. I was like,
what?
They were trying to make the point that, you had to be exactly obedient. And if this was a rule and you weren't being it, then that means you don't understand the atonement of Jesus Christ, which, whatever, bud. So that was one thing I can definitely see. Have you not heard that one before?
No. Would you like to call out the zone leader that said it so we can ask him where it came from?
Well, yeah, you can if you want. Yeah, I think that was Tyson and Blake that were saying stuff like that. I don't know where they got that from, but I don't agree with it. But I still thought they were right. I still respected them, but that one particular thing I thought was a bit silly. But we're going to get in trouble.
We're going to get them on the podcast now, and that is going to be our main topic to start the podcast. All right, let's talk about this comment from Elder Carlton. Goodness.
No, please don't mention my name. Hopefully nobody will watch this far in the podcast. Nobody's going to watch this far in, so they won't hear it. But
you send us an email when they message you.
Yeah. Yeah. What else? I did find, at the time, I'm a lot different now because I've lived in North America for so long. I'm used to the way that you guys are, but I remember it was definitely a big culture shock being English. And so when some of these guys were speaking, they changed the voices when they were teaching, and then go back to a different voice. I was like, what was that, Elder? I was like, why are you talking in this spiritual holy voice or whatever? I remember that being a thing. And can I tell you one? Elder Bednar came and we had like a whole mission thing. We all met in Edinburgh once, and I was sat near the back, and Elder Bednar said this pretty cool thing. I thought it was funny. I wrote it down in the journal. He was like, "Have you never had an opportunity when you're mid lesson and your mind wanders during the lesson, and you kind of lose focus? Maybe you think about your girlfriend back home, or whatever." And I was like, and he's like, "If you haven't, you're a liar." I was like, and so I was like, "Oh, that's funny. You're a liar." I wrote that down. You're a liar if you don't do that. And then for some reason, he was like, he went on another sentence, and so and then he pointed at near. I thought he was pointing near me, and he's like, "What did I just say?" And I was like, "Oh, you're a liar." And then it was like dead silence. So I was like, "Oh, he didn't mean that. That's not what he was looking for." And I was like, "Oh no, that's embarrassing." I've just shouted out, "You're a liar" to Elder Bednar, but hopefully he's forgotten about that. And he came to our stake actually a few years ago here, and he didn't mention. I shook his hand recently as well, so hopefully that's.
You're that lad from Scotland to call me a liar.
But yeah,
that's amazing.
As on a whole, though, I just wanted to point out that some people might be, look back and a bit negatively on the missions. I definitely don't think that. I think it was a huge blessing in my life. One of my old bishops growing up, I remember a comment he said was like, everything, he can look back and his mission was pretty much part of, like, blessed the rest of his life. And I can definitely see the same thing. It's definitely blessed the rest of my life for sure. It gives you so many skills, and your testimony grows. I thought it was amazing.
Great.
So, yeah.
All right. Anybody else you want to shout out from the mission, whether you served with them or not, that you'd like to get on?
I wrote a few different names down. So Elder Warby, Stephen Warby, he was in my group that came out. Served with him near the end in Elgin. He was my district leader up there. Troy Solitos, he's one of my favorite companions. Craig will get upset if I don't mention him, so I can't say he's my favorite companion, but sorry, Craig. I like Troy. Waylon Grantham would be interesting, definitely a different perspective. He's atypical. Matthew Franklin would be cool. He was like a 25-year-old guy, really pretty wealthy. He used to have $500 leather shoes from London. I was like, what the heck are you bringing? It's like £500 shoes. But he had all these fancy Savile Row suits, so he'd be cool to have. Elder Chung, the Chinese, and Elder Ho, those two would be really cool as well, because they baptized a heck of a lot of people, a lot more than the average people. And Elder Shenton's younger brother as well, Oliver Shenton, would be good to have as well. And then a guy that I didn't, Elder Fernandez Garcia, he was a Spanish guy, lives in Mallorca now, and Elder Brophy, the younger one, he came out with me as well. So any of those guys I'd love to hear from.
Great.
Awesome. Did you want to talk about your experience in the transition from the Scotland-Edinburgh mission to the Scotland-Ireland mission briefly at the end of your mission as well, Tom?
Oh, yeah, sure. Previously, other people have probably mentioned we thought we were the best. Scotland, we were super obedient, super strict, and we kind of wore that as a badge of honor, to be honest, I think. Maybe to our detriment. President Griffiths was probably trying to get it out of us a little bit, but I remember being in his own leader conference when the merge happened, and we had some of the Irish zone leaders and the assistants to the president there, and there's a little bit of tension, a little bit, like you could see, they were wearing pink ties, they were seemed definitely a lot more casual than we were, using slang language, and we were probably had a mote in our eyes. We were judging them a little bit, perhaps, and they were probably thinking, who are these weirdos, these extremists or whatever. So that was an interesting kind of period of time. I remember the AP coming from Ireland, or I think he got called, was Paul Henry. and he was from my home stake, and so that was kind of weird. Where another guy that I knew from before my mission was there, coming from Ireland into the Scotland Ireland mission, I guess.
Yeah.
So that was it was just a bit of a transition period, and I think it just probably a couple of months. It took a while to iron some of the kinks out and get people used to that. I forgot to mention my grandfather-in-law, my wife's granddad, was a mission president in Scotland, and he was my patriarch. He gave my patriarchal blessing, so that was kind of cool. That was a family connection there. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Gordon Williams. But apart
That's
from
pretty
that,
neat.
yeah.
All right, that's a good rundown.
Yeah,
and we
I also had a girlfriend when I was out, and her parents were Scottish, and lived in England, but he had an office in Paisley, and every now and again he came up and he used to take me out for dinner. And bring me like a care package, but that didn't go well. We broke up a few weeks after I got home, and then I moved to Canada. So, hey,
there you go. All right. Well, we really appreciate you coming on, Tom, and reminiscing with us. This has been a blast. It's always good to talk to our brothers from Scotland. That shared bond that we have, whether we're there at the same time or not, it's the same people, the same country that we love. So,
yeah,
really
Did
appreciate
you think everybody was called Paul when you first got to Scotland?
I had a hard time with switching from "what's up" to "all right." You all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought I was so stupid. It took me like a week to figure it out, but I thought when you go on a bus or whatever,
Paul?
everyone's like, "Hey, why is it called Paul? Hey, you're right, Paul." But then it's like Pal. I was like, "Oh wow, I'm dumb. I couldn't figure that one out." But yeah, it was fun. But yeah, sorry. But yeah, it was. Thanks for having me on, guys. That was great.
Yeah, Tom, we love you. We'll certainly talk more soon. All right, cheerio.
Cool. See you in a bit. Bye.
Bye.